Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. One of the issues that the 21st century Muslims face, something that is unprecedented, it never happened before, is the issue of suicide. And we want to ask ourselves, the first question will be why? Why was it not at the rate that it is today? Why was it not the same 50 years ago, 100 years ago? What's the issue? Right? We do hear of stories of suicide before. There was quite a lot, not a lot, but there was stories of suicide. For example, First World War, Second World War, when people are under a lot of psychological pressure and torment and so on. But right now, there's no world war. We're talking about here Western countries, first world countries, i.e. USA, Canada, UK. You're talking about real, amazing, interesting countries. And the question has to be asked, why? What's the problem? And when I look at the history, what has happened in the past 50 years? What's on the rise? What could be correlated to this? Of course, people might disagree, and that's fine. I just want you to think about this. I want you to just ponder. Because right away, people, when they just attack and they say, oh, you're correlating things wrong. Just think about it. Ponder. وَذَكِّرْ. Ponder. In the past 50 years, of course, in these countries, these so-called first world countries, because third world countries, right, you can still say that there's misery, that there's poverty, there's war, there's so much injustice, and okay, people could be suffering from many things. But I'm talking about America, Canada, UK, Australia, Germany, Switzerland, Finland, Sweden, these countries. And specifically, I want to also talk about Muslims, because that's an added point there. Because Muslims are supposed to understand the purpose of life. They also know that intihar, as it's called in Arabic, or suicide, is haram in Islam, and the person who does it will fall in Jahannam and keep doing it the same way as they've done it when they committed suicide. And I spoke about in another lecture that the majnoon, or the person who is not able to have control over his mind, over his rationale, over making decisions, the pen is lifted from the majnoon until his sanity comes back to him, the one who's insane. That's a different story if an insane person commits suicide. This is, the scholars will have a different ruling on that. But just the normal people, why are they turning to this Japan, Korea? What's going on? We find that in the last 50 years, there's been a lot of comforts that have come to us in these countries. There's a lot of, easy to access things and easy to order. Everyone's got some basic standard of living, right? So what's the problem? Why are we not happy? Why are people doing this? Why are they turning to suicide? Number one, I would say, is that there is a decline in belief in God, and there's a rise in atheism. And when you don't believe in God, you have no purpose in life. Done. Number two, the issue of media. It started, of course, with movies and cinema and films and all that, but now with social media, there's just such a huge platform for people to push all kinds of ideas and ideologies that are not in line with faith in God and with Islam, that people are confused. They're spending so much time on those mobile phones, on the social media, and they're so empty. Fake pictures, fake things, updates, yet inside we are dead. So I believe that these points are probably what's directly associated with people having depression, not feeling happy about life, not feeling fulfilled in life, and then moving towards the option of suicide because they don't see any purpose in their life, what to do. A lot of Muslims do the same thing. It might be shocking to some of you, but I counsel and I deal with students that talk about suicide a lot. There's been even attempts in some of my circles that I've dealt with in counseling and in my educational circle. And it's shocking because a Muslim should understand their aqidah. A Muslim, be it girl or boy, woman or man, should understand what Allah says about this and how big of a sin is. But what happens? Why do they not take it? Why is suicide on the rise? Why? Like, for example, there was a case where a guy hanged himself. Another girl cut her veins. Why is this happening amongst people who are practicing? These are not even people without hijab or without, going to the masjid. No, these are people who are practicing. What gets into them? So of course, for us, we might say, well, shaitan, obviously, he wants that because it's one of those big sins. So shaitan is always there to make the waswasa, those suggestions, right? People think, even for the people who have mental issues, they hear noises, voices, and of course people explain that this is just internal processes and imbalances in the chemical, in their mind and so on. There's all kinds of, people want to explain it from a biological perspective. But the reality is that psychologists themselves are puzzled with some of these things, and you'll find people calling the supernatural, the things that cannot be understood. They're called all kinds of things, but they never want to deal with the reality. And the reality is that shaitan is a huge thing to do. Now my appeal here is to the Muslims who believe in these things and who understand that those whispers, those thoughts, those voices could be from shaitan, of course. Another thing, of course, you have to see a doctor. You have to see. The problem is that we don't have strong, or a lot even, the numbers, but strong deen-oriented understanding and psychologists at the same time, right? You find the Muslim psychologists that are trained in the traditional non-Muslim psychology school of thought, Sigmund Freud and others, right? So, this issue of the time that we live in right now, the social media, the fakeness, the society has given us everything. We have everything, and still we are not happy. Why? Because we're missing the point. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created the spirits and mankind except that they worship me. It's not just about salah, but here salah is a purpose. Ibadah is not just salah, but it's so much more. It's intention, is what you do in your day, in your work, in everything. There's so much that ibadah can mean, right? So but even salah itself, the 5 daily prayers, with khushu, with understanding, with purpose, when you prepare, when you know that you're meeting your Lord, conceptually, the mindset, it gives you purpose in your day. 5 times a day you have purpose. If nothing else makes sense in your life, if nothing else makes sense in your life, in these 24 hours each and every day, this thing, 5 daily prayer, okay, khamsa salawat, that's it. This should give you purpose. Just this, yeah. Brother, I lost here. I'm not good here. Okay, but 5 times a day, you are meeting your Creator. How do you make that meeting? How you prepare for it? What you think about it? This is a huge purpose. This gives you just this thing, just this little thing. Of course, we have to do more, but this little thing, supposedly little, but it's huge in the sight of Allah, can really give you purpose in your life. It's that missing element from the rest of the world. And what I believe personally, looking at all the research, analyzing all the cases, how these North European countries have high rates of suicide, even though they have some of the best standards of life. You look at Sweden, you look at Denmark and other countries, right? Their rates of suicide. You look at their lifestyle, because Allah is not that Allah is not present, astaghfirullah, but they have not taken Allah in consideration. So they have all kinds of ills in society. They think that they've reached the pinnacle of civilization with their clubs and their bars and the LGBTQ and all these things that they're doing. Legalizing things have really moved away from the fitrah, and they're so educated and so advanced supposedly, yet why this? Because they're missing Allah, because they have no purpose in their life, because their lives sometimes are fake. And yeah, you might be satisfied for a little bit, but then in the long run, the next day, the day after, there's no purpose. you find that, yeah, I've been drinking, I've been doing all kinds of weird sexual things, but by the time you're 50, that doesn't really, 60, doesn't really appeal to you anymore. And then you find out, oh my God, what's my purpose? It is Allah. For the Muslims who are living in these countries, you need to think, because this is something that is affecting the Muslim Ummah. We are receiving cases of suicide, and theoretically speaking, a Muslim will answer, what? A real Muslim will never do that. They do. They do. And again, I want to make the distinction between the insane upon which the pen is lifted and the sane, or just people who are just tired of life and just, consciously take this decision. There's a big difference in Islam. But this is a problem, and we need more. We need our imams, the major ones, the popular ones who are receiving questions, to be trained, to have teams. We need the Muslim Ummah, governments, to invest in these programs, to train imams in psychology, in counseling, in understanding, but Islamic psychology. We need to start developing this branch of knowledge, the ilmul nafs, but Islamic, based on Quran and Sunnah. We need to go back in the Hadith, in the Quran, and analyze and learn and try to start drawing books, to write books and manuals according to authentic knowledge. Very few books out there, very, very few manuals. We need to have training centers. Our imams, our leaders of the community have to be trained, not from the Western concept or approach to psychology. Please, trust me. Yes, there are certain good things, but the premise, the base is wrong. We need to start, we need to be Islam-centric, Muslim-centric, Allah-centric. Allah is at the center of our studies, of our approach and everything, not something else. So please try to understand that I call upon the imams, I call upon the leaders of the communities to communicate, to encourage their followers, to encourage their students to seek knowledge, for the universities to open branches in this. And there are some more, alhamdulillah. We need more, because your regular folks in your communities who are following you need help and need support. We can save many lives, not just from this in this dunya, but for the akhirah, because suicide is such a big sin that leads someone to Jahannam. So we need to step up. We need to do so. Counseling, education first, of course, based on Quran and Sunnah, counseling, and then reaching out and saving people. Remember the verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, for those who save one innocent soul is as if they saved the whole humanity. May Allah help us understand, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.